She couldn't scream. She couldn't fight back. But her cat could. In a quiet British suburb, a young woman was found dead in her apartment. No signs of forced entry, no witnesses, and nothing stolen. At first, police were baffled. There was no obvious suspect. No forensic trail. It looked like the perfect crime. But then they noticed something strange. The victim's cat, Tinker, was unusually agitated. He paced around the room, eyes locked on a single corner. Investigators followed that gaze, and what they found would change everything. This is the story of how a murder was solved by a house cat, and how fur, claws, and instinct cracked the silence. This is Whiskers and Witnesses, the cat that caught a killer. Valerie Hayes was 30 years old, a freelance graphic designer living in Exeter, England. Friends described her as kind, independent, introverted. She lived alone in a modest flat with her only constant companion, Tinker, a 7-year-old tabby cat. Tinker was more than a pet, he was family. Valerie's social media was filled with pictures of him, curled up on her keyboard, perched on windowsills, and occasionally photobombing her Zoom calls. She rarely let strangers into her apartment. She worked from home, kept a low profile, and loved her peaceful routine. So when Valerie missed 2 scheduled calls and failed to respond to messages for over 24 hours, friends grew concerned. One of them called the police. Officers conducted a welfare check, and what they found was chilling. Valerie was lying on the floor of her living room, motionless. There were no signs of a struggle, no sign of a break-in, no obvious wounds. The apartment was tidy. Nothing seemed stolen. But she was dead, and Tinker was hiding under the sofa, hissing. At first glance, it looked like a sudden medical episode, perhaps a stroke or seizure. But the autopsy told a different story. Valerie had been suffocated. A pillow had been pressed against her face with force. There were faint bruises on her arms and wrists. Defensive wounds. This wasn't a natural death. It was murder. But who would do this? The front door was locked. The windows secure. Valerie had no recent threats or known enemies. That's when investigators noticed something odd near the body. A single scratch across the killer's potential entry path. A broken blind near the kitchen window, covered in a few faint red marks. And just feet from Valerie's body, tufts of fur. Detectives bagged the fur, unsure what to make of it. But then one sharp-eyed forensics officer suggested something radical. We check under the cat's claws. Why? Because Tinker, in his final moments with Valerie, might have fought back. Veterinary pathologists were brought in. Tinker was sedated, and under his claws, they discovered it. Skin cells, traces of blood, and epithelial tissue. They ran a DNA test. It wasn't Valerie's. It matched a man named David Harsley. David Harsley was a former co-worker of Valerie's, an IT consultant who had briefly dated her 2 years prior. The relationship ended quickly. Valerie told friends he had been too controlling. Creepy. She blocked him on all platforms. But David never let go. He'd created fake social accounts to monitor her. He drove by her apartment at night. He even tried to contact her friends under fake names. Valerie never reported him. She thought it would blow over. It didn't. Police confronted David with the DNA evidence. He denied everything. Claimed he hadn't seen Valerie in over a year. Claimed the DNA was planted. But his alibi didn't check out. Traffic cameras placed him near Valerie's apartment the night she died. His phone pinged off a nearby tower. His browser history showed searches like how to suffocate someone silently and fingerprint-proof gloves. He was arrested and charged with Valerie's murder. Tinker became an overnight media sensation. Headlines read, "Cat catches killer." The prosecution used the DNA under Tinker's claws as critical evidence. Experts testified to the likelihood that Tinker had scratched the killer during the murder attempt. The wounds on David's hands, poorly healed scratches, matched the timeline. Though Tinker couldn't testify, he was presented as the reason the case cracked wide open. The courtroom was captivated. The jury was shown photos of Tinker, forensic images, and blood trace analysis. David was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life without parole. And Tinker? He was adopted by one of Valerie's best friends. The Valerie Hayes case sparked global interest in a niche but growing field, animal forensics. Today, trained forensic veterinarians assist law enforcement in analyzing behavioral clues, biological samples, and even trauma reactions from pets. Pets are no longer considered irrelevant during investigations. They are witnesses in their own right. In 2013, the first UK conviction based on cat DNA occurred when investigators matched fur found on a dismembered body to a suspect's cat. In another US case, a barking pattern from a dog captured on a neighbor's security camera helped establish a timeline of murder. Animals don't forget. They don't lie. They simply react. And sometimes, those reactions are the key to the truth. What do you think? Should animal-based forensic evidence be considered more seriously in court? Could your own pet be silently recording everything around you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this case gripped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. At True Crime Hub, we uncover the hidden witnesses and silent observers that most would overlook. Because sometimes, the truth isn't spoken, it's clawed.